Namashreshtam Manumapi Sachiputram Atriswarupam Rupam Tasya Karajam Urupuram Maturam Gostavatim Radhakundam Girivaram Aho Radhikamadavasam Prapto Yasya Pradita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi. So we're reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila chapter 25, the residents of Varanasi become Vaishnavas. Now some of this chapter, if we remember reading the summary of the chapter which is given at the beginning of most of these chapters in Prabhupada's Chaitanya Charitamrita, then we will recall how it mentions that the chapter will discuss something of Rupa Goswami's circumstance in Vrindavan. I think. Jai Shri Gurudev ki Jai. Yeah. So it says in the summary, the beginning of the chapter, the Lord then departed for Jagannath Puri. Kaviraj Goswami then describes something about Srila Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and Subudhi Rai, which is something of a unusual pastime, which we'll get to very soon. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Brinda. Text 124. Amate ye prati se prema prayojana karye dvare kahitara swarupa lakshana. Supreme affection for me is called love of Godhead, and that is the ultimate goal of life. Let me explain by practical example the natural characteristics of such love. Panchabhuta yaiche bhutera bitare bahire bhaktagane svuri ami bahire antare. The 5 material elements are existing inside and outside of every living entity. Similarly, I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, am manifest within the heart of the devotee, as well as outside of his body. Yata mahanti bhutani bhutesu chatvacheshvanu pravishtan ya pravistani tata teshu nateshvaham. As the material elements enter the bodies of all living beings, and yet remain outside of them, I exist within all material creations, and yet am not within them. Bhakta ama preme bandi ache hriday bitare yahan netra pare tahan dekaye amare. A highly elevated devotee can bind me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his heart by love. Wherever he looks, he sees me and nothing else. Srijati hridayam nayasya shakshad dariyad avasa bihito pyagog hanasa pranaya rasanaya dritangri padma sabhavati bhagavata pradana uktaha. Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who destroys everything inauspicious for his devotees, does not leave the hearts of his devotees even if they remember him and chant about him inattentively. This is because the rope of love always binds the Lord with the devotees' hearts. Such devotees should be accepted as most elevated. Sarvabhuteshu ya pashyed Bhagavad Bhavam Atmanaha Bhutani Bhagavat Yatmani Esha Bhagavato Tamaha. If a person advanced in devotional service sees within everything the soul of souls, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, consequently, he always sees the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the cause of all causes, and understands that all things are situated in him. Gayanta ucher amum eva samhata vichikyur umat takavad vanadvanam paprachur akashvad antaram bahir bhuteshu santim purusham vanash patin. All the gopis assembled to chant the transcendental qualities of Krishna very loudly. And they began to wander from forest to forest like mad women. They began to inquire about the Lord, who is situated in all living entities, internally and externally. Indeed, they even asked all the plants and vegetables about him, the Supreme Person. Taiva Bhagavate Etina Kaya Taiva Bhagavate Etina Kaya Sambandha Bide Prayojanamaya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, one's relationship with the Lord, activities, and the attainment of the highest goal of life, love of Godhead, are the subject matters of the Srimad Bhagavatam. How is it that all right, okay. So we've made a bit of a mistake here, actually. I was wondering the last few verses. I was thinking, haven't we read these just recently? When looking at the summary now, I didn't return to the appropriate place. I started in an earlier place. Makes sense. I'm like, surely we've read these verses in the last few days. Yeah, okay, so this makes more sense. We're at the place where Mahaprabhu is departing Varanasi, and the devotees are wanting to follow him. Ratri utte prabhu yadi karila gamana pachela glaila tabe bhakta panchajana. After rising very early on the sixth day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started to leave, and 5 devotees began to follow him. These 5 devotees are Tapan Mishra Raghunatha Maharashtriya Brahman Chandrasekhara Kirtanya Paramananda Panchajana. These 5 devotees were Tapan Mishra Raghunath, the Maharashtriyan Brahman Chandrasekhara, and Paramananda Kirtanya. Sabe chahe Prabhu Sange Nila Chalayaite Sabare Vidaya Dila Prabhu Yatna Sahite. These 5 wanted to accompany Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Jagannath Puri, but the Lord attentively bade them farewell. Yanra Icha Pache Aisha Amare Dikite Ebe Ami Eka Yamu Jarikanda Pate. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, if you want to see me, you may come later, but for the time being, I shall go alone through the Jarikanda forest. Sanatane Kahila Tumi Yaha Vrindavan Tomara Dui Bhai Tata Karyache Gaman. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised Sanatana Goswami to proceed toward Vrindavan, and he informed him that his 2 brothers had already gone there. His 2 brothers being Rupa and Anupam, also known as Balaba. No, different. Balaba later died when returning from Vrindavan with Rupa Goswami.
That's Anupam.
Oh yeah. Kanta Karangiya Mora Kangala Bhaktagan Vrindavane Aile Tandera Kariha Palan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Sanatana Goswami, all my devotees who go to Vrindavan are generally very poor. They each have nothing with them but a torn quilt and a small water pot. Therefore, Sanatana, you should give them shelter and maintain them. Eta bali chalila prabhu saba alingia, sabe padila tata murchitahana. After saying this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced them all and began to proceed on his way. They all fainted and fell down. Katakshani ute sabe duke gare aila, sanatana goshane brindavane chalila. After some time, all the devotees got up and returned to their homes, very much grief-stricken. Sanatana Goswami proceeded toward Vrindavan alone. Eta rupa Goshani yabe matura aila druvagate tanre suburi raya milila. When Rupa Goswami reached Mathura, he met Subudhi Rai on the banks of the Yamuna at a place called Dhruvagat. Purve yabe Subudhi Rai chilagode adhikari Husaina Khan Sayada Kare Tahara Chakari. Formerly, Subudhi Rai had been a big landholder in Gaudadesh, Bengal. Sayada Hussain Khan was then a servant of Subudhi Rai. Dighi Kode Te Tare Munsifa Kaila Chidrapana Raya Tare Chabuka Marila. Subudhi Rai put Hussain Khan in charge of digging a big lake, but once finding fault with him, he struck him with a whip. Pache yabe Hussain Khan gode Raja Haila, Subudhi Rayere Tinho Bahu Badaila. Later, Hussain Khan somehow or other was appointed Nawab by the central government. As a matter of obligation, he increased the opulences of Subudhi Rai. Tara Sri Tara Ange Deke Marane Rachine Subudhi Rayere Marete Kahira Jastani. Later, when the wife of Nawab Sayada Hussain Khan saw the whip marks on his body, she requested him to kill Subudhi Rai. Raja kahe amara poshtarai haya pita tahare marimu ami bala nahikata. Hussain Khan replied, Subudhi Rai has maintained me very carefully. He was just like a father to me. He said, now you're asking me to kill him? This is not a very good proposal. Stri kahe jati laha yade prane na maribe, Raja kahe jati nile inho nahi jibe. As a last alternative, the wife suggested that the Nawab take away Subudhi Rai's caste and turn him into a Mohammedan. But Hussain Khan replied that if he did this, Subudhi Rai would not live. So, although Subudhi Rai was the victim, his wife was the vindictive one. She wasn't the injured party, but maybe her ego had been injured. So she wanted to kill Subudhi Rai, to have him killed, because he whipped her husband. But then the second option, turn him into a Mohammedan. Sri Marite Chahe Raja Sankate Padila Karonyara Pani Tara Mukhe Dioila. This became a perplexing problem for him because his wife kept requesting him to kill Subudhi Rai. Finally, the Nawab sprinkled a little water on Subudhi Rai's head from a pitcher that had been used by a Mohammedan. Well, it contaminated him in some way. Who knows what the water jug had been used for? Could have been washing after going to the toilet or something. So that, desecrated his purity, contaminated him. It may not have been, but, in those days, there was this concept of Brahminical purity that reached neurotic proportions, where sometimes even if the shadow of a Sudra would fall on a Brahmana, then they would have to go and take a bath. And it was a sensitive topic, the association of the Hindu population with the Muslim ruling population. Generally, they were the ruling population. Well, they were the ruling population, but they were converting the lay people as well, so it wasn't just the ruling population. But it was a sensitive topic, as a Hindu who would associate with a Muslim would be considered contaminated. They wouldn't be considered a proper Muslim, a proper Hindu. Such was the case with Rupa and Sanatan. So, through some kind of association with the Muslims, then it was considered that a contamination or a conversion had taken place. So this is what happened with Subudhi Rai. We'll read the purport here. Prabhupada will explain a little more. More than 500 years ago in India, the Hindus were so rigid and strict that if a Mohammedan would sprinkle a little water from his pitcher upon a Hindu, the Hindu would immediately be ostracized. Recently, in 1947, during the partisan days, there was a big riot between Hindus and Muslims, especially in Bengal. The Hindus were forcibly made to eat cow's flesh, and consequently, they began crying, thinking that they had become Mohammedans. Actually, the Mohammedans in India did not come from the country of the Mohammedans, but Hindus instituted the custom that somehow or other, if one contacted a Mohammedan, he became Mohammedan. Rupa and Sanatan Goswami were born in a high Brahmin family. Jai Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Rupa and Sanatan were born in a high Brahmin family, but because they accepted employment under a Mohammedan government, they were considered Mohammedans. Subudhi Rai was sprinkled with water from the pitcher of Mohammedan, and consequently he was condemned to have become a Mohammedan. Later, Aurangzeb, the Mohammedan emperor, introduced a tax especially meant for Hindus. Being oppressed in the Hindu community, many low-caste Hindus preferred to become Mohammedans. In this way, the Mohammedan population increased. Later, the British government made it a policy to divide the Hindus and Muslims, and thus they maintained ill feelings between them. The result was that India divided into Pakistan and Hindustan. Of course, Mohammedan, the word Mohammedan is an old-fashioned word for Muslim, as you know it, right? From early histories, it appears that the entire earth was under one culture, Vedic culture, but gradually, due to religious and cultural divisions, the rule fragmented into many subdivisions. Now the earth is divided into many countries, regions, and political parties. Despite these political and religious divisions, we advocate that everyone should unite again under one culture, Krishna consciousness. People should accept one God, Krishna, one scripture, Bhagavad Gita, and one activity, devotional service to the Lord. Thus people may live happily upon this earth and combine to produce sufficient food. In such a society, there would be no question of scarcity, famine, or cultural or religious degradation. So-called caste systems and national divisions are artificial. According to our Vaishnava philosophy, these are all external bodily designations. The Krishna consciousness movement is not based upon bodily designations. It is a transcendental movement on the platform of spiritual understanding. If the people of the world understood that the basic principle of life is spiritual identification, they would understand that the business of the spirit souls is to serve the Supreme Spirit, Krishna. As Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Mamaivam so jivaloke jivabhuta sanatanaha. The living entities in this conditioned world are my internal, fragmented parts. All living entities in different life forms are sons of Krishna. Therefore, they are all meant to serve Krishna, the original Supreme Father. If this philosophy is accepted, the failure of the United Nations to unite all nations will be sufficiently compensated all over the world by a great Krishna consciousness movement. Recently, we had talks with Christian leaders in Australia, including the Bishop of Australia and everyone was pleased with our philosophy of oneness in religious consciousness. Text 194. Tabe Subudhi Rai se Chadmapana Varanasi Aila Saba Vishaya Chadiya. Taking the Nawab sprinkling water upon him as an opportunity, Subudhi Roy left his family and business affairs and went to Varanasi. This is a shorter purport. It appears that Subudhi Roy was a big landholder and responsible, respectable gentleman. He could not, however, avoid the social misconception that one becomes a Mohammedan when water is sprinkled on one's face from a Mohammedan's pitcher. Actually, he was planning to give up his material life and leave his family. Hindu culture recommends 4 divisions: Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyas. Subudhi Roy was thinking of taking sannyas, and by the grace of Krishna, he received his opportunity. He therefore left his family and went to Varanasi. The system of Varnashram Dharma is very scientific. If one is directed by the Varnashram institution, he will naturally think of retiring from family life at the end of his life. Therefore, sannyas is compulsory at the age of 50. The way Prabhupada puts things sometimes. So, it seemed a very bad social policy. Who introduced it? Where if a Muslim sprinkled water on a Hindu, then the Hindu would have to become a Muslim. Not very good for preserving your Hindu population. It favored, actually, a Muslim takeover. It's a very bad social, political strategy. A weak one, based on fear. In fact, they should have constructed something of the converse. Whereas if a Hindu sprinkled some like Ganga Jal on a Muslim, then they should have started propaganda that the Muslim would have to become a Hindu. Anyway, as Prabhupada makes the point, the Muslim population in India, a few hundred years ago, they were all Hindu. But through policies like this, and other more, you could say, more practical or more realistically oppressive policies, like there's a mention of heightened tax or a special Hindu tax, and possibly to ingratiate themselves in other ways to the ruling class, to the Islamic rulership, people would convert. Just like it's happening with Christianity today in India. The Christian missionaries, they go into India and they offer incentives, generally to the working class peoples. They offer incentives to become Christian. They build them schools, they offer them employment, etc., in exchange for conversion to Christianity. Same thing happened in New Zealand back in the day with the Maori population, except sometimes they were trading muskets for religious conversion.
Blankets and guns.
Yeah. Here's a gun. Now you convert.
That's very strange.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, of course, it's completely immoral, but their concern was conversion, not so much change of consciousness, I don't think. I mean, the bloodshed increased dramatically in the tribal wars. It wasn't just the missionaries, but that was one of their tactics, to supply a gun in exchange for conversion. And then, of course, the tribal people, being warriors, they suddenly had much greater capacity to slaughter each other. Prayaschita puchila tinho panditera gane tan rakahe tapta grihita kanachara prane. When Subudhi Roy consulted the learned Brahmanas at Varanasi, asking them how his conversion to Muhammadanism could be counteracted, they advised him to drink hot ghee and give up his life. See, another ludicrous idea. It's all based on an extreme conception of sectarianism, not understanding the universal nature of divinity, thinking that one's life is ruined because some water has been sprinkled on one from someone of a different religion. It shows that even though they were brahmanas, they weren't so spiritually aware. To be promoting that kind of policy where some kind of perceived contamination, it may not even be real contamination, water from someone else's pot. There's no physical disease, there's no curse being laid upon one. It's all just self-perceived contamination. Paranoia, phobia. So it's almost like psychological disorder, really. And then the remedy for it is again an even crazier act. Drink ghee, commit suicide. Kehakahe e nahe alpadoshahaya sunya rahila raya kariya samsaya. When Subhuti Rai consulted some other brahmanas, they told him that he had not committed a grievous fault and that consequently he should not drink hot ghee and give up his life. So some brahmanas were seeing sense. As a result, Subhuti Rai was doubtful about what to do. Tabe yade Mahaprabhu Varanasi aila tanre mili raya apana britanta kahila. In his state of perplexity, Subhuti Rai met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when the Lord was at Varanasi. Subhuti Rai explained his position and asked Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu what he should do. Prabhu kahe ihan haite yaha Vrindavan nirantara kara Krishna nam sankirtan. The Lord advised him, go to Vrindavan and chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra constantly. Some sanity. Go to Vrindavan and chant Hare Krishna. Eka nama base tomara papadosha yabe aranama laite Krishna charana paibe. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised Subhuti Rai, begin chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and when your chanting is almost pure, all your sinful reactions will go away. After you chant perfectly, you will get shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna. Ada Krishna nama laite Krishna sthane stiti mahapata keda haya e prayaschiti. When you are situated at the lotus feet of Krishna, no sinful reaction can touch you. This is the best solution to all sinful activity. Pana agya rai brindavaneri chalila prayaga ayodhya diya naima sharanye aila. Thus, receiving the order from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to go to Vrindavan, Subhuti Rai left Varanasi and went through Prayag, Ayodhya, and Naimisharanya toward Vrindavan. Katakadivasa Rai Naimisharanye Rahila Prabhu Vrindavana Haite Prayaga Yaila. Subhuti Rai stayed for some time at Naimisharanya. During that time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Prayag after visiting Vrindavan. Mathura Ashiya Rai Prabhu Varta Paila Prabhura Lagana Pana Mane Badaduka Haila. After reaching Mathura, Subhuti Rai received information of the Lord's itinerary. He became very unhappy because he was not able to contact the Lord. So Subhuti Rai, it seems, went to Naimisharanya. Subhuti Rai met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when It seems he met him when Mahaprabhu was on his way to Vrindavan. And instead Mahaprabhu instructed him to go straight to Vrindavan. Not straight to Vrindavan, to go to Vrindavan and chant. Seems he went on a roundabout route through Ayodhya, Naimisharanya, etc. As it says, Prayag, Ayodhya, Naimisharanya. And while he was at those places, Naimisharanya at least, Mahaprabhu goes to Vrindavan and then comes back to Prayag, where Mahaprabhu is observing what's called the Magha Mela, where they bathe at the confluence of the Ganga, Yamuna and Saraswati during the Punim of the month of Magha. Around this time, actually. Magha Punim. And then he missed Mahaprabhu. Then he went on to Vrindavan, but Mahaprabhu had already returned. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Reading from Revealed Truth by Srila Bhakti Sundar Govindadev Goswami Maharaj. Subchapter entitled The Supreme Wealth. Gurudev is talking about Mahaprabhu's instructions to Prakashananda. For the next, it seems, couple of subchapters. The Supreme Wealth. After seeing Mahaprabhu's divine form and Sankirtan, Prakashananda was heavily convinced that he could not remain in his position. Prakashananda thought that he would talk with Sri Chaitanya Dev when he saw the Lord again. Later, when he saw Mahaprabhu coming down the road, again chanting in a dancing mood, Prakashananda fell at Mahaprabhu's lotus feet and took Mahaprabhu's foot dust on his head. He said, "Oh, I am very foolish. You have everything and I have nothing. All ecstasy, joy and happiness abide in your body, and your eyes show that. I have been practicing Jnana Yoga for so long, but what have I got? Nothing. I have got nothing. I need your mercy. You are the embodiment of Harinam Sankirtan. You must be that, otherwise my mind could not have been attracted to you. And you must be Krishna. You are distributing Krishna consciousness to everyone, and it is not possible for anyone to do this except Krishna himself. Only Krishna has the power to do that, so you must be non-different from Krishna." In this way, Prakashananda took shelter at the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu said, "What are you doing? You are a Sampradaya Guru." Prakashananda prayed, "Prabhu, please do not cheat me now. I feel it is necessary to surrender to you, and I feel you are distributing the supreme wealth to all jiva souls. Please do not deceive me now." Jai Srila Bhakti Sundar Govindadev Goswami Maharaj ki jai. I'll sing Hari Haraya. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Yadavaya Namaha, Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Oh, you play. I forgot you had a pradanga there. Gopala Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan.
Gopala Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan.
Giridhari, thanks Giridhari, Gopinath Madana Mohan. Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra. Radha Radha Shiva Sari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunatha. Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunatha. Chaika Shaikari Charana Bandhana. Jaha Hoite Vignana Sabista Purana. Achai Koshai Andra Muni Tandra Dasa Sabada Pada Renu Moda Panchagrasa Andara Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanivasa Janame Moda E Abhilasa Echai Koshai Tabbe Braje Koilo Basa Shri Shri Radha Krishna Nitya Leela Kodila Prakasha Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavana Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majaya Shri Guru Vaishnava Pada Padma Kore Asha Hari Nam Sankirtan Kohe Narottama Dasa Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Bolo Hare Ramo 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 Hare Hare Jai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Jai Gaura Hari Bol Jai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Jai Gaura Hari Bol Jai Safari Kara Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Sundar Radha Giridhari Ji Ki Jai Jai Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmala Charja Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakak Sri Dhadev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Vishnupad Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai Sri Rupanuga Guru Varg Ki Jai Vishvavaranya Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Samaveda Vaishnava Mandala Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Brinda Ki Jai Sri Ekadasi Titi Ki Jai Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai Sri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Nitai Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bo People getting some dasha.
Oh, look. Ah, okay. You see the top and the bottom.
Yeah.
Down the upper